Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. They say that when there are six economists, there are 7 to 8 opinions. And I'm no economist. As a matter of fact, as I was discussing earlier, I do not belong to any one discipline. I'm the line of the great thinkers like Chanakya, Aristotle, Socrates, Plato, Leonardo da Vinci, who study every subject, every discipline, since each discipline is connected to the human beings, and the study of the human beings is the most important study. Well, since I'm no economist, still I'm an observer, and I see things what they are, not through the colored glasses of the typical school to which I might belong, but with clarity and objectivity, with precision and clear ideas, without in any way letting my adherence to the schools color my perceptions and judgments. And now, after 2008 is the time when the people are thinking of a V-shaped depression. First, let me tell you very clearly, we are not going to face a V-shaped depression. The scientists and experts are always in the habit of coming up with diagrams, informatics, and other things to impress. I would call it an L-shaped depression basically. And it is unlike the other depressions that we had earlier. After the infamous 2007 to 2009 financial crisis, the world didn't fully recover. And along with the economic ups and downs and upheavals, the political situation changed, the social situation changed, the cultural scenario changed. And then came this pandemic, scaring the people out of their senses. The global economy was excavated not by the market forces, but essentially by the policy mistakes. And those mistakes are common all over the world. Rather than address the structural problems that the financial collapse and ensuing recession revealed, the governments across the board kicked their can down the road, creating major downside risks. That is the root of the new depression that's going to happen. It might happen tomorrow, it might happen next month, but this decade, starting 2020, is a decade of L-shaped depression. The probability is very high and undeniable. Unfortunately, even if this Great Depression leads to lackluster U-shaped recovery, so the L shape might become U shape this year, but in the long run, it's going to be L shape. And there are various reasons for that. And as I said earlier, I'm talking about it on the basis of observation, analysis of economy, socio cultural, political thing. The first reason, and that's a very serious concern, is the politicians' habit of deficits and the corollary risks, debts and defaults. Imagine the debt of Canada, For every $1 earned, every citizen is supposed to be under debt for $1.67 for every dollar. And then this 1.67 was at the end of 2019 with a bounty given under the new regime because of the COVID-19. It must now be crossing 1.78. So every child who's born, the moment it's born, is burdened with debt. And Canada is not the only country. Look at the situation in States, India. As a matter of fact, name any country where there is public accountability and you would find this penchant for socialism, public welfare, which is really not welfare, but enables the leaders to create vote banks. The policy response to coronavirus crisis enabled these politicians the massive increase in fiscal deficits. And in many places it was 10% of the GDP or even more. And when the public debt level was already so high, this increase of 10% of GDP makes it unsustainable. Worse than that is the loss of income for many households and firms. And apart from the public debt, the private sector debt will become unsustainable too. So you have a combination of the unsustainable public debt and unsustainable private debt. Result, mass defaults, mass bankruptcies. And when the defaults are there, when the bankruptcies are there, they have a domino effect. Say an industry goes out of business. Thousand odd people employed over there will become jobless. Thousand means thousand families. And then those people have been consumers. So they stop purchasing things. Automatically, the producers of the other products which they were buying would suffer a loss and also might undergo. So this goes on a rolling stone down the hill, gathering more and more mass. So the soaring level of public debt, the soaring unsustainable private debt ensures a more anemic recovery than was possible 20 years back or 10 years back. At the end, the 30 depression didn't have this situation. 2008 didn't have this situation, but today the situation is markedly different. And I'm amazed that not a single politician has come up with this. The second factor, which is going to make depression a probability just on the horizon. That's demographic time bomb with the advanced economies. The public spending has been allocated to the health systems. It has been through a pandemic. Universal health care and other course, of course, the public goods are necessities, not luxuries. Now what happens? Majority of these countries suffer from aging populations. And these aging populations have different problems. But the needs are more, and when the needs are more, the cost of the health care increases without in any way increasing the productivity. Most developed countries with the aging population have to spend such outlays in future, and that implicit debt increases because today some countries would have unfunded health care and social security system, but they are going to become much more cumbersome and burdensome. But that's not enough. There's a third reason, and that's the growing risk of the deflation. I'm worried about inflation all the time because the poor people suffer. But when the deflation is there, you can be sure it is a definite sign of oncoming recession. There is a massive slack in the goods, and that's both in the unused machinery and the capacity utilization of that machinery and the labor market converts unemployment, mass unemployment. So this mass unemployment coupled with price collapse in the commodities, especially in oil and industrial metals, is going to knock the bottom out of all industrial activity, production, and this will make debt deflation likely, increasing the and that would increase the risk of bankruptcies. But matter doesn't end here. There's a fourth factor. There's a currency debasement. Now, when the more money is needed for the welfare activities, for the health activities, for fighting with the other countries' defense activities, what do? So they go in for the currency debasement, inflation. They start printing notes as central banks try to fight deflation and also want to avoid the specter of surging interest rate because when there's a massive debt buildup, the only way the economists know is increase the interest rate. But there's no solution. So politically, they have got to cut that interest rate, and that with printing more money, the monetary policies become very unconventional and have far-reaching effects. In the short run, government needs to run monetized fiscal deficits, and there's necessity to fight deflation and depression. But over time, the negative supply shocks the market and deflation becomes definite, inevitable. Along with that is the fifth issue of the broader digital disruption of the economy. Millions of the people losing their jobs, working are earning less, real income getting depleted and decreased, the gap between income and wealth increasing. So the economy is bound to suffer. So to safeguard against future supply chain shocks, companies in advanced economies will reshore production from low-cost regions. So the reverse globalization would take place. Produce a small cost region, sell it, but the political things come into being. So it would not help the workers at home. This would also increase the pace of automation, putting downward pressure on wages and further fanning the flames of populism, nationalism, xenophobia, all divisive things. We divide the world. This would give rise to the sixth reason, that is deglobalization. People used to swear by globalization. But then pandemic, the cultural issue, and then saying make America great again, made in India, made in China, all that, nationalism, rank nationalism. Good in its own way, bad as far as the globalization is concerned. So that is accelerating the trend towards balkanization and fragmentation that was already underway. The countries, two strongest economists in the world are US and China. They will decouple first of all. And when they start decoupling, other countries will respond by adopting still more protectionist policies. So again, they will have a cyclical effect, domino effect. So the post-pandemic world economy will be marked by stricter regulations, restrictions on the movement of food, services, capital, labor, technology, data, and information. Just yesterday, President Trump stopped all visas, H1 visas. So about 200,000 people from India would not get jobs in USA. But those jobs will be given to the US workers. So the US workers are happy, but the Indians are going to suffer. Same is about the hotel workers, agriculture workers. All visas have been stopped with effect from yesterday. And that is going to affect A, the economies of those countries from where these people are coming. Secondly, the trend towards globalization. All movement of goods, services, capital, labor, data, information is going to be affected. This is already happening in many industries, especially medical equipment, food sector, pharmaceutical. And then when this happens, there'll be trend towards authoritarianism. Now, this is what the economists won't take into consideration, but that's a fact. When there's a backlash against democracy, when there's a demand for more socialism, the populist leaders try to mislead people by giving the cry of helping people, social welfare, which is in fact another name for parasitism. So, economic weakness, mass unemployment, rising inequality would be the grist of the politician's mill. And under conditions of heightened economic insecurity, these people, middle class people, blue collar workers, will become susceptible to the populist sloganeering. And the result would, of course, be depression. Then comes the next factor, the geostrategic standoff between USA and China. These two economies are poised to oppose each other. Trump's administration every effort to blame China. China expansionism in India, Vietnam, Philippines, and South Sea. So the Chinese regime is going to double down its claim that USA is conspiring against China. And this decoupling of China and America in trade, technology, investment, data will intensify. This diplomatic setup will be a stage for the new Cold War between USA and its rivals. And the rivals are not only China, but also Russia, Iran, North Korea. And with the presidential election coming in after a few months, you can be sure an upsurge in a new kind of war, cyber warfare, clandestine, hidden, but very powerful. And this can lead to conventional military clashes as well. Let's not forget that. And when the military clashes are there, economy is going to shrink, shrink badly. Technology is the key weapon in the new war. So US technology sector will become increasingly integrated with the national security. And that sector would not be affected, but others would be. And the last is the environmental disruption. It has been very clearly shown by this coronavirus pandemic that such pandemics, such natural disasters can wreak havoc, more havoc on the economy than the financial crisis. We have raping epidemics, we forget them. We have a poor memory. HIV started in 1980s, SARS in 2003, H1N1 in 2009, MERS in 2011, Ebola in 2014. They are all because of the loss of biodiversity, climate change, man-made disasters, poor health and sanitary standards, abuse of nature and natural systems, and growing interconnectivity of a globalized world. These pandemics and other morbid symptoms of loss of biodiversity will become frequent, severe, and costly. So these risks are looming large. They were looming large before coronavirus came. But coronavirus came and added a spark to that. And now it looks like a perfect storm brewing up on the horizon, ready to sweep the globe in depression. And by 2030, the technology and more incompetent political leadership would help enhance the problem. If there is sensible leadership, it might resolve or minimize these problems. Well, we can hope, but be sure L-shaped depression is round the corner and because of the reasons I've told you. And these reasons are not in your control and my control. They are a societal issue and need a concerted action globally. Think about it. And you would find that just the mere statements by the politicians have no meaning. Study these reasons I have given you. Think about it, ruminate, contemplate, and you will see the validity of what I'm telling you. Thank you.